respectable and honorable juries of speech contest, and all my beloved audiences, ladies and gentlemen, in this particularly beautiful moment, please allow me to deliver some things that need to be said about equality of education in Indonesia. Indonesia, as we all know, is the country of our hope, a mighty nation that has not been awakened by its people. This is where the role of education plays a big part to build this nation. But unfortunately, we're facing the reality where many of Indonesian students are still very far from the expected skill to be able to compete in the global industry. Now, before I start, I would like to point out that the quality of education that I bring onto the table in this occasion includes two important aspects, namely equality of opportunity to obtain education and justice in obtaining equal education in society. Equitable access to education means that all school-age residents have received educational opportunities, and access to education can be said to have been implemented fairly if all groups can enjoy education with the same quality and level of education. Equitable education has received attention for a very long time, especially in developing countries such as Indonesia. According to the 1945 Constitution, the government is responsible for educating the nation's life and creating general welfare. Education is a strong foundation needed to achieve the progress of nation in the future. Even more important is the provision in the face of a global era that is full of intense competition between nations. Thus, education is an absolute requirement that must be met because it is a determining factor for a nation to be able to win in this global competition. For this reason, an important agenda that must be prioritized is to increase the distribution of education, especially for the poor and remote communities whose number reaches more than 20 million people, or about 11% of the Indonesian's populations. For residents who live in urban areas, access to education opportunities is very easy. The existing infrastructure and facilities are very supportive. Meanwhile, for residents in rural areas, access to education is very difficult. These facts show that education in Indonesia is not evenly distributed due to various factors such as the absence of coast, teaching staff, difficult access, and the lack of infrastructure and facilities, as well as old-fashioned thinking that considers education to be not so important comparing to work and earning money. The location of the school, which is usually not very strategic and far from the residential areas, also make it difficult for the children to gain education at school. They have to travel in a very long distances, passing through steep cliffs, even crossing a river without a bridge. And in this case, the difficulty of regional access and transportation is also the main factor causing inequality in education in Indonesia. If education is about to reach them, proportional conditions must be created by mobilizing local and national resources. Unfortunately, there is still a lack of government attention to remote areas. Basically, Indonesia has implemented various policies in effort to equalize access to education, which is still lacking. One of the programs being implemented to date is SM3T, Sarjana Mengajar Daerah Terluar, Terdepan, dan Tertinggal, a government program that sends around 300 education graduates each year to remote, outermost, and underdeveloped areas to meet the needs of teachers who are still lacking. Now, therefore, it is necessary to have a policy that requires all educators who wish to become civil servants, or in the sense that they are still civil servants, to dedicate themselves to remote, outermost, and underdeveloped areas for a minimum of 1.5 years. If it is in accordance to the specified time, the educators will receive a certificate of proof that he has completed obligations in order to get his appointment as a civil servant. Along with that, there are at least 4 forms of improvements to support the equality in learning process, namely, first, rehabilitation of school buildings or classrooms. B, providing free educational facilities including educational aids, enrichment books, reference books, and multimedia facilities. Third, improvement of access infrastructure facilities to schools, where in this case the government is obliged to explore one by one the condition of access roads to schools so that they know which ones should be prioritized for the construction of infrastructure facilities for access to schools. Last but not least, the government should also understand the importance of meeting the needs of teachers in various remote areas. The teacher is an important element in the world of education. Without a qualified teacher, it is impossible for a child to be educated properly. When there are many honorary teachers who work sincerely in various regions, the government should be responsive in improving their lives by providing appropriate teacher allowances. This needs to be done so that the teachers can be more enthusiastic in educating and teaching their children. Equitable education is an obligation that must be fulfilled by the government because education is the key to create a stronger Indonesia.